Hello. Hey, so April was a weird one, wasn't it? It seemed like March went on for years and then all of a sudden we had April and now it's the end of April. We had a lot happen, so solidarity to people who had an April birthday. Me too. And it was at home. We had cake at home. It was good. Another year older. But bigger than that, way bigger, is my baby Drew got married. So I thought I would just kind of add this in because I know a lot of us are going through some COVID weird. So we had a COVID wedding. So these two lovebirds got engaged back in the summer and had their eye set on April 16th as a wedding date. And when Corona happened, my daughter went like, "Oh, we'll do it after." And then she cried because she wanted that date. And then she said, "We'll do it after." And there was some back and forth. And finally, she just said, "The date's important. We're doing it. We have no idea how long Corona is going to last." And so it was important to her, and we did it. So just wanted you to kind of see pictures of the fam. Here's Vincent Venici and Drew Venici, now the new happy couple. And here's the original squad. So Hubs and I have been married for 25 years. And then it goes in order 1, 2, 3. So, oldest one, about a year left at the University of Utah. He's the reason we have these videos. Makes me laugh every day. So that's child one. And this one, I think if it's possible to totally just transplant your personality into someone else, I kind of feel like that's what happened here. Only she's prettier, so even better. And then my baby, who just got the news, like a lot of you, that graduating online. So a lot of weird for COVID time frame. Just thought I would throw this out there. We're going through some weird too. Okay, so we're in strand 3, and this is the last standard. So this is stuff we have heard before, but in some of it, it's been a minute. So remember the planes. I talked to you about hulking out, grabbing a pane of glass and chucking it at me. And the way it landed, dividing the body in different ways, would give us our planes. So if you threw it like a frisbee, and it hits me here, whoops, here, that's the transverse plane. If it cuts you into portions that are superior and inferior part, that's a transverse plane. If you threw it like this, and it landed, maybe I was standing sideways, it lands and gives us like anterior, posterior portions. And then finally, sagittal is the one if you threw it lengthwise and it landed here, and it breaks the body into right and left parts. If you get me right down the nose, there's a name for that. Sometimes they call it the median plane, but it's also called the mid-sagittal plane. So planes, you need to know it. Quick review of directional terms. So if it's toward the head, that's superior. If it's toward the feet, that's inferior. If it's toward the midline, right here, that would be medial. If it's away from the midline, that's lateral. If we're talking about extremities only, so there's my arm. If I were to say, like, which one is the cute date, I'm going to say, is the elbow proximal to the wrist or is the elbow distal to the wrist? We know that proximal means closer to the root of the limb. So the elbow would be the cute date, proximal. The wrist would be distal. So proximal, distal on the extremities. And then we have anterior means toward the front, posterior means towards the back. So hopefully that all sounds like, oh yeah, I know, we heard that. Okay, some signs and symptoms. So there are some specific signs and symptoms for just this standard, and I just threw all of them in here. Acute is a sudden injury that is usually associated with a traumatic event, such as clashing into another player. Goosh! knee backwards. That's the wrong way. That's an acute injury. We could pinpoint it to a set time. It was when he was running with the rugby ball and number 21 freaking wrecked him. Okay, and then the chronic injury is the result of prolonged repetitive motion. So this gives you examples such as swimming, running, cycling, but any sport. Since we're in a world where we go, you're a volleyball player, well then you play volleyball here, and when this season's over, we play volleyball some more, and then we play volleyball some more. Or we do it with baseball too. Our throwers are getting chronic repetitive motion injuries to their shoulder. So that's one that you just, in a perfect world, you would go, I'll participate in my sport, and then I'm going to take a break from it and play something different, but we just keep playing the same things. So hopefully we have some bionic joints that are pretty rad by the time you need them in the next few years. Okay, next two words were constriction and dilation. So I picked a picture that had both. So the one with the arrows going out, that's dilation, and the one coming in, that's constriction. So some areas of the body where that could happen. Your eyes. If you're in really bright light, your pupil will constrict. If you're in dark light, we need to let more light in, so we dilate. In our blood vessels, if we're asking our big movers like our quadriceps and our hamstrings and our glutes to move, then those cells will be like, all right, ding, 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 ding. If you're making me do this, I need nutrients, I need oxygen. And so we'll vasodilate so we can send more oxygen and nutrients to those working muscles. Versus like, let's say that you're freezing cold. You go outside and you're freezing cold. Your body has this mechanism by which it will constrict the vessels that are in the extremities, and it will basically keep the blood flow where the vital organs are. So we'll get some vasoconstriction in the blood vessels. One more quick example. If a person has an asthma attack, then they're going to have kind of this reaction happening within the bronchi and the bronchioles. So the air tubes are being pinched off essentially. Then they take a little out of their inhaler, and that's a steroid, and it acts as a bronchodilator, so it will actually open up and allow that person to take a breath, such as this. Okay, some more words. So I thought, oh, this would be a good Jeopardy category. E word, signs and symptoms. So these were all starting with E. So ecchymosis, I did them in order, the pictures. So this is ecchymosis, this is edema, this is effusion. So ecchymosis is a discoloration. And I think the question that maybe some of you have would be like, well, what if I have both? Then you have ecchymosis and edema, and it's fine. You can have both of these at the same time. So picture. Okay, so let's say that this person rolled an ankle, and we maybe compromise the calcaneofibular, the anterior talofibular, and the posterior tail. Maybe those three. Tore it. We've got some edema there from all the primary, secondary cell death, and likely in the next little bit we'll still have some edema. We'll also have some ecchymosis because those blood vessels would have burst, and we would see it underneath the skin. Okay, effusion is when we have swelling due to an escape of fluid into a body cavity. So it could be a bursa, for example. I'm not sure what bones this is trying to portray. Maybe a knee, because this looks like it might be a knee or elbow. I don't know. It doesn't matter. If there's a bursa, where there's a bursa, if the bursa leaks out fluid, we can get some effusion in that body cavity. So boom, there you go. And we have inflammation. This was a word that was like a theme for this unit. So inflammation, we have these signs of inflammation: pain, heat, redness, swelling, loss of function. We've talked about that prior to. This is just our body's reaction to either infection or damaged tissue. So it can happen from cell death. So because we have all the things that were inside a cell coming outside of a cell, then we would treat a lot of it as foreign organisms, and inflammation process would go to work. last but not least, we have kind of a bell curve for like what is the healthiest kind of a joint. And on the extremities, we have people that are super tight over here, people that are super loose over here. And these extremities are where most of the injuries come in. So I'm going to be honest with you. I'm tight. I err on the side of tight. And my daughter, who just got married, she has really lax joints that come from my husband's side. So I wouldn't be able to do something like this. And you know, in some joints she's a little bit more loose than other places, but joint laxity just is characterized by excessive flexibility. So in this case, this person can hyperextend their elbow. They can hyperextend their thumb. This one can hyperextend their fingers. So if you train, I mean, try that. Like mine, it's definitely not going to go with this. Like, holy cow, that's insane. Toes pulling back, if you can pull them back further than expected. And we have some studies that are based on that goniometer and things. It would be joint laxity if they could go further than the range of motion than we expect. And then this is showing you that here's a knee that is hyperextended a little bit. So most of us can't actually stand like this, but there are some people who have that kind of joint laxity. So that's the end of strand 3, buddies. We're going to wrap this one up. There's a PT unit coming up next, and that's going to round us out for the year, and then we'll just be to review. So keep on keeping on. We'll see you next time.